Welcome back to our last video. We're going to be looking at the advantages or pitfalls of the T-chart method now. So the T-chart method is the sort of new method that I was introduced to while researching and looking for methods that would additionally support comprehension of subtraction and increase the speed with which students do subtraction. So we're going to be looking at the same 5 questions again, and we're going to just jump in with number 1. So we have 24, take away 16. So again, the T-chart requires us to keep our positives on one side and our negatives on the other, and it works with numbers. It's similar to integers, chips, but we're using numbers. So I have 24 positives, and I only put down the 24 because I'm taking away the 16. So I don't note the 16 anywhere. I'm just keeping track of how much I'm taking away. So I have 24, and I need to take away 16 positives. So I'm taking away only from the positive side. 16 smaller, so I'm not even going to have to work with 0 pairs or anything like that. So I can take away 10 right away. So minus 10 would bring us to 14. And I know I need to take away 6 more to bring me to 16. When I'm looking at this value, I have 16 to start with. Students might also look at this 14 and say, I don't like this 4 in here, so I'm going to take the 4 out of the picture. So minus 4 brings us down to 10. And then here we have 14 taken away, so we still need to take away 2 more. So I take away 2 more, and I have 8. Another way I like to write it is noting it like this. Here's my positives, here's my negatives. I like to break up my units. So I would write this at this, let's write the 24 first, just so we see what we've got. Let me just erase that. Yeah. Come on, eraser. Okay. System cooperation is sometimes required. Okay, so let's go back over here. I like to write down the 24 initially, 24, and then you could break it up like this, 10, 10, and 4. Might make it easier to see. Then I need to take away 16, so I can take away the 10 from here, and I can take away this 6. So when I rewrite it, I can take the 6 away from here, so there's only 4 left. So I now have 8. It really depends on the student, how they like to note it. Again, you want to make sure that you've taken the right values. So here I have a difference of 16. So it depends on, this method really is good for students who can see the difference in numbers. And there's a lot of students who work really well with differences. Versus like the concept of removing. They work well with the differences. They can see that the difference between 16 is a 10 and a 6. Then they could take the 10 away from here, or writing it down this method. It's really a preference of method, of notation, that is. The key that you want to stress to your students is that they need to keep track of what value they've taken away. So here I've noted that I've taken away 16. And here I've noted that I've taken away, I have to do the last step here, taken away a full 16. So you really want the students to keep track of how much they've taken away so they know when to stop the question. All right, number 2, 16 take away 24. So again, do my little chart. I put my positive and my negative. I write down 16 in the positives because it's a positive value of 16. There's no negative in front of it. And I'm taking away, so I'm removing 24. So let's move this up a little bit so we can visualize. Okay, so ultimately, I'm going to need more than the 16 that I have available. So students can right away, might note that right away and start adding numbers to make it 0 pairs. So if you add the same number to one side as you do to the other, you get a 0 pair, as I explained in the previous video. But first, I always tell them to get, just like on the number line, we get to our 0, you want to get your 0 benchmark. So you want to remove all of these 16 first before you move on to taking away the 24. Some students might not be able to see right away that 24 minus 16, what it's going to equal, so you can take it away in pieces. So I can take away the 4 from the 24, so leaving me with, again, the notation is up to the student. So I like to write it down. I'm taking away this 4, so it's going to be left with 20. So I've taken away the 4 here, so minus 4, and I'm left with 12 in the positives. So I have 20 to take away, so I'm going to take away the 10 now. I'm going to be left with 10, so minus 10. So here, I'm going to be left with 2 in the positives. And C helps me keep track of how many I've taken away here. So now I have 2 more to take away because I want to get to my 0 benchmark. So I'll take away the 2. So I'm left with 8 to still take away. So now that I'm left with 8, I know I need to put in a 0 pair. I'm at 0. I need to add a 0 pair. You can write down the 0. I know I need to get more positive values. So how do I get more positives? I add zeros. So I add zeros to both sides. They can do it in intervals, but obviously I know I need to take away 8 positives. So I would add 8 on this side and 8 on the other side so that I can take away that full 8. They could have done it in individual chunks like 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 4 and 4, but we want to take away that full value of 8 on the positive side. So now I've taken away 8. So here, I've taken away my full 24. So it depends on whether they like this notation where they have to keep adding, or this notation where I've taken away, and I know, but with my last scratch, I've taken away all 8. And so my answer is -8, because the 8 is sitting on the negative side. So this method works, and this method up top worked. Again, both these methods require quite a bit of training on the Tchart. Once students get comfortable with it, they really like it because they choose their own path. They have ownership of the numbers that they're taking, the steps. It is faster to do than using integer chips, but I would say that this method requires full support of a comfortable integer chip level before getting to this understanding. The visualizing of this process, the 16 minus 24 process, when we did it visually, as you remember, we had the positive circles. Let's say it was 6, take away 8, just because it's easier to show. It had positive circles. I added the 0 pairs, the 8 0 pairs. And then I took away 8 positives, so all of these were gone, and 2 more of these were gone, and I was left with these being 0 pairs, so I didn't really worry about them, right? Because 0 pairs cancel each other out, so the only thing I was left with was really these 2 negatives. So it showed us that the answer was 2 negative. So this visual representation really supports this Tchart method when you're getting into larger numbers. So let's look at number 3, which was 748 minus 54. And this is where this method truly excels, or starts excelling, is getting into large numbers that integer chips can't support. It's much easier on a Tchart, but because we're working with positive values, the notation's kind of finicky. The Tchart has the advantage of being able to visually demonstrate the 0 pairs and use the math to get rid of our 0 pairs. But here, we're working only on the positive side. So it's debatable whether the Tchart is needed. If students got really comfortable using the Tchart, then they might jump to it. But I think naturally they wouldn't jump to the Tchart to do this process. But this is how I'd like to write this one down. 748, and then I break it up. So I like to do the method where I demonstrated, where I like to break it up into my pieces. That's the process I enjoy better with the Tchart. because then I can keep track of everything. So now I know I have to take away 54. So I'm going to take away the 40 right away. So I like to keep track of it over here. So I've taken away 40 minus 40. And I'm left with 14. I'm going to take away the 4 from here. So let's rewrite it so that we see each step. I've taken away minus 4. So I'm at 704. And here I've taken away 44 for people who like to write it down like this. And when I'm writing both of these down here on the sides, here, let's move this over here. I'd like to note that, students don't necessarily show all methods. I'm showing us all to keep track of every number or every method. But yeah, students wouldn't be writing down like these numbers and this little summary sheet on the side. They would note it in any way they wanted to. I'm showing us both methods of keeping track of it. You started with 54, you took away the 14, you took away the 10. Sorry, you took away you took away the 40, you took away the 4, or here you're showing I took away the 40, I took away the 4. This is what I've taken away so far. So now I'm at 704, and I still need to take away 10 units. So I break up this 700, into 600, 100, and 4. And then I continue to break that up into, because it's still not easy to take away my 10, 600, 90, 10, and 4. And now I can take away my 10 easily. So minus 10. Now I've taken away the full negative 54, so I know I can stop. Or here I've taken away the 10. So all that I'm left with is 694, which is 694. So this notation might look messy to people. Some people really aren't comfortable with that, and they would much rather go back to the column method and do it that way. This is just sort of visually representing that process where we had the hundreds tiles, the tens tiles, and the 4 tiles. But this method ultimately, let's say, will work. And now we're getting to the ones that, yes, like I was saying earlier, the ones that truly shine when we come to this process. We have number 4, and negative 7, take away 4. So I start with the 7 on this side because it's a negative. I have to take away, so I have to remove 4 positives. Well, I don't have 4 positives to remove, so I have to add a 0 pair. So because I need to take away 4 positives, I want my 0 pairs to be 4s because that's the easiest number to take away. So I'm taking away my 4 positive. What am I left with on this side? 11. So I have 11 negatives. Got my answer. Now you can see how quick that was. This is why I said this method shines when we're dealing with negative numbers. And it would addition and subtraction of negative and positive integers, even if they're really large, this method is ideal. So then we have negative 4, take away negative 7. Again, we start with our chart, positives, negatives. I start with the first number. I have 4. I'm taking away negative 7, so I need to have negative 7 on this side. Well, I don't have negative 7 on this side. What do I only have 4, so I need to have 3 more negatives to be able to take away the full 7, but I can't just add a 3 on this side. It's not magic. I have to make it a 0 pair. Now I can scrap my 4 and 3, which is my negative 7. I've removed negative 7. I'm left with 3 positives. So this method is great. It's quick to do this process. So ultimately, this one gets a 5 on 5 with some serious supports when we're looking at numbers like 1 and 2, where we're dealing with a bigger number taking away a smaller number. So 5 on 5 with support.